Welcome to Beyond the Glory, the podcast that takes you deeper into the untold stories, raw moments, and defining victories that shape the world of sport. I'm your host, John Walland, and each fortnight I bring you candid conversations with athletes, coaches, and trailblazers who go beyond the headlines to reveal the real grind behind the glory. If you enjoy what you hear, make sure to like, share, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us grow and keeps these incredible stories coming your way. Don't forget to follow Beyond the Glory on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more ways to connect with the show. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, tag us, or join the conversation wherever you're listening or watching. Let's go Beyond the Glory together. Welcome to Beyond the Glory, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys, the triumphs, and the untold stories behind sporting greatness. I'm your host, John Walland, and today's guest is nothing short of a South African legend, a 9-time winner of the Comrades Marathon, a pioneer in ultra-distance running, and a voice of inspiration for generations of athletics, none other than Bruce Fordyce. In this episode, we go beyond the medals and marathon records. We talk mindset, pressure, legacy, and the race that shaped Bruce's life and the lives, of course, of so many others. Whether you're a runner, a sports fan, or just someone chasing your own version of greatness, this one certainly is for you. Let's go beyond the glory with Bruce Fordyce. Bruce, lovely to chat to you as always. And I know that many refer to you as the Gary Player of South Africa in terms of your achievements. And I had the pleasure of chatting to Mr. Gary Player in my very opening podcast of Beyond the Glory. And I think that's a good comparison, quite frankly, in terms of what you've done for sport in South Africa, not only in South Africa, but also internationally. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. Just want to check who wrote that introduction that you read out there. It wasn't you. You could never do that.
I wrote it. I did indeed.
Some bright copywriter.
I don't have a copywriter. No, I did it myself, and obviously do a lot of homework in these situations. But thank you. I'm sure you enjoyed
it. Yeah. So Gary and I share one thing in common, and that's 9 wins. And I think that's about it.
But
he
more than
that,
majors.
He won 9 majors.
Yeah.
And
both of us are you good friends with
Gary? Yeah,
are you good friends with Gary?
Met him a few times, quite a few times. Yeah, I met him a few times. You know, they used to have a sports awards function to choose the sports star of the year, hosted by the Rand sports writers. That was the old-time SA Sports Star of the Year, voted for by all the newspaper writers. And so we would all go there. And if you were a past winner, you'd get invited. And it was an amazing thing. Gary used to go. I mean, he won it about 7 times, but people, he used to go, and he'd be there every year at the annual function. And it was quite a thing. And sadly faded away and replaced by a whole lot of other strange competitions that last about 3 years and then vanish. And then there's another one that the new Sports Star of the Year competition brought to you by so-and-so, that soon vanishes. They had that old one it was quite a who's who of South African sport. Anyway, and so I used to meet Gary there quite a lot, but I also see him occasionally at various functions. Yeah.
I must admit, the camera quality is looking absolutely great. Nice to see you wearing that green number club. Looks absolutely great. The green number club, of course, certainly something to aspire for many runners.
Yeah, so the green number, for people who don't know, is for Comrades runners who've run 10 or more times. So you get what's called a green number, and you keep your number forever. So my number is 2403, and that's my number, and I've earned it. But if you can earn it in a shortcut. There's a shortcut to earning it. You don't have to run 10 times to get a green number. If you can win 3, you get a green number. So that's a bit tricky, winning 3. Or if you earn 5 gold medals for finishing in the first 10, you can get a green number that way. But 99% of the runners who run Comrades get their green number because they run 10 times.
When you think back to your 9 Comrades wins, is there one that stands out as the most meaningful to you, and why, Bruce?
It's very hard, John, to say that, because it's like asking a mother who had 9 children, which one's your favorite one? There's the naughty one, there's the beautiful one, there's the clever one, there's the one that gives you a lot of stress when you think about it. So I think a mom loves all her children equally. I love all my Comrades wins equally. If I had to really, um, my first win, John, was unfortunate. It was very unfortunate because the Comrades had allowed itself to be made part of the apartheid Republic Day festival celebration events that took place in 1981, May the 31st, 1981. And a lot of runners were outraged because at the time the slogan was, "What are we celebrating? There's no cause to celebrate. Why are we celebrating 20 years of apartheid?" Um, and so some of us who ran showed our displeasure by wearing black armbands, which I did during the course of the race. And so I was a very, very unpopular winner. I was hated by the crowd, most of the crowd. Nowadays, you can't find anyone who actually agrees that they would have supported such an evil concept as apartheid. But back then, they certainly did, because I was booed the whole way along and I had things thrown at me. But so it was an unhappy win, but it remains my proudest because I love to have crowd support. I love people to like me, and I ran 90 Ks of everybody hating me, but I still managed to win with a record. So that kind of, for me, vindicates my stance. And then it opened the door for me that I knew that I could win again, and so I kept going after that.
We're chatting about the green number, and of course, you got yours after 3 wins. Many carry on for years and years afterwards, like yourself. But what motivated you, Bruce, to keep coming back year after year, especially after you had already cemented your legacy?
The thing is, Comrades is a drug. It really is. It's a very addictive drug. Um, and so all of us, I know you included, whether we're running or not, and I haven't run a Comrade since 2012, I'm going to be there every year. I'm going to be there every year. And if I'm not there, I'll be glued to the television watching it. So it's very addictive. And of course, if you win, I can't tell you what that's like. That's like a extra powerful drug. So then you want to win again because it's such a fantastic moment in your life. So it kept pulling me back. And then when I could no longer win it, the race kept pulling me back because I could still run and finish. So I've actually earned my green number in perpetuity number 3 times because I've run 30. So and then I kicked up a fuss to the Comrades organizers and said, actually, I've won it 8 times. I've earned a green number in 8 different ways because I've run 30, so that's 3. If you win 3, you get a green number, but I've won 8, so that's 2 more because that's 2 sets of 3, and then you get. I've won 9, which is of course 3 times 3, so that's 3 more, and then I've earned 11 gold medals, so that's 2 more. So if you add all those up, I've got a green number 8 times. So I said, I demand my laurel wreath with 8 flashes underneath to show how many times. They said, no, Bruce, we're only going to give you the 3. So they didn't give me the whole lot.
What was your mindset on race day? I mean, did it change over the years as you matured as an athlete?
Well, which race day? Like your first Comrades Marathon that you run, you just hope you're not going to die, and you hope you're going to finish, and you hope you're going to make it. So your mindset then is probably one of complete bewilderment and fear. By the time I thought I could win, it was nervousness, but with a very set mind, knowing that I have a task that I have to complete. And then when I had won a few times and I knew that I had a very good training program, I knew that I was very fit. I could never say I was going to win, but I could say I'm going to run 5.5 hours. So I would say, I'm going to run 5.5 hours. If you think you can run faster, then you'll beat me. But I'm going to run 5.5 hours. So I used to go to the start line kind of in the mid 80s, quietly confident and almost keen, let's get this done. And then after that, when I was no longer winning, it was more about, okay, let's try and have as much fun as possible. Let's run this thing and have as much fun as possible. And one of the highlights for me of running Comrades was to finish my last one. I finished with Zola Budd, which was an amazing experience. Zola was running her first, and I was running my 30th, and we had a wonderful time, like about 20 kilometers on the road together. An amazing experience.
Is there a race day you didn't win that you still think about today?
Yes, I could get a bit annoyed about 1980. 1980, Alan Robb wouldn't slow down. Very inconsiderate of him, and so I finished second. And I was about a minute behind Alan. And I think if I had been a bit bolder, if I had believed in myself a little bit more, I might have won that race. But I finished second, and you can't take it away from Alan. He did everything that's required to win, and he beat me. But if I look back on it, I sometimes think that possibly should have been my first win, not the next year.
What did a typical training week look like during your peak years?
So, John, I ran throughout the year 120 to 140 kilometers a week. But for 3 months, March, April, May, before race day, then I did 180 to 200 a week. That's twice a day. You have to train twice a day. And you incorporate into that training hill sessions because the race has got lots of hills, long runs, speed work, all sorts of stuff that you have to put in. And so for me, that would be about 10 weeks of very, very intense training. I couldn't do that now. I would break down with injury if I tried to do that now. But it worked. And so what I learned for the Comrades is that a lot of runners think that the person who trains the hardest is the one who's going to win Comrades. So a lot of runners would say, if we can only find out what Bruce does and add 5% to that, we must beat him because we'll be training harder. That's not how it works. The person who trains the cleverest is the person who is successful. And part of training the cleverest is knowing when to train hard, when not to train hard, most importantly, and when to rest. And so what happens every year I give talks. I've got a talk tomorrow to Benoni Northerns. I've got a talk to the Jeppe runners. I've got a talk to Rustenburg. I'm speaking to the Mayerton runners. They all want to kick off for Comrades. They start going flat out in November, December. And you sort of say to them, guys, the Comrades training starts on the 1st of March. That doesn't mean you start running then. Of course, you've got a foundation, you've got a base, you've been running steadily all the time. But the actual specific, intense, hard training starts on the 1st of March. And they don't believe me. And I say, I do it every year. That's it. And they still don't believe it. They think, that's what he says he does. But actually, he trains flat out all year round. I don't. And I do a lot of recovery time, a lot of rest time. And then when it is time to train hard, then you train very hard.
How did you prepare mentally for those up and down runs? And which did you prefer?
The mental training came through self-belief. So if I had to try and prepare myself now mentally to win Comrades, it wouldn't work because I just know I can't. But what used to happen in those days was I would get answers from my training. My training would start to tell me, you're getting fitter and fitter. And then I would do one or two specific training sessions or a race. So I'm trying to think, 1988, I had a great up run. Really, I was the first runner to break 5.5 hours going up. I had an indication that I was ready to do that 2 weeks before because I won a 10K race in East London in 29 minutes. And if you can run 10Ks in under 30 minutes and you're a Comrades runner, that is fast. So that race told me you're in the shape of your life. I didn't have to do anything else to find out. I just had to go and do that session. I would run because, of course, Comrades is in winter, so it gets darker and darker. So I would run. My longer runs were always done in the evening. So I would run at night, and without doing it on purpose, I would have mental rehearsal where I just started saying to myself, okay, you're on poly shorts. How are you going to run poly shorts, Bruce? And then it would come into my mind, you're going to put one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. You're not going to sprint up poly shorts. Nobody sprints up poly shorts after 80 kilometers run. But what you're doing, there's the TV truck, there's the crowd cheering, there's the press vehicle, and you're in front and you're going up that hill. Bang, 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 bang. And then when I got to race day and I would get to poly shorts, it was like deja vu. I remember thinking, I've been here before. I've done this before. And I thought, yeah, you did it before a few nights ago on a training run. So that kind of positive stuff. And then every year I had music. Every year I chose music that would be my theme song or theme music for that year's Comrades. And it could be anything from classical music to reggae. Just whatever it was that I liked at the time. And that would be my music for that year. So if you say to me, Pachelbel's Canon in D major or whatever, Pachelbel's Canon, I just go straight to 1981. If you say to me, Bob Marley Exodus, Exodus of your people, it's very rhythmical, I would go straight to 83. If you said Van Morrison Astral Weeks, then I'm in 84. So I had music that accompanied my challenges, which I thought were quite good. And then the other thing I would do is I would watch past videos. I would watch past videos, particularly of races that I had won. Not because I wanted to have an ego trip and see how good I was, but I wanted to look at it just as an affirmation. You did that. You did that 2 years ago. You were sprinting after you'd gone over the top of poly shorts. You were going very quickly. You can do it again because there you are doing it. So I used to do that quite a lot. And then also just follow athletics in general. I mean, my era of athletics was a very exciting, intense time. I've met them. They were heroes of mine. But the great rivalry between the British milers, Steve Cram, Steve Ovett, Sebastian Coe. That was a fantastic time, 79 to 83, when they were so dominant, 86. So I would watch that as well. I would watch that stuff. I would watch my marathon running hero, Bill Rogers, my East African hero, Kip Keino, and I would watch those guys and get inspired by them, even though
Were
they
there
weren't running
any
the same distance as me.
Sure. Were there any unorthodox methods or personal rituals, Bruce, you followed in your
Yeah,
preparation?
I think ritual is very important. Um, and so my particular ritual was, as I said, I had to have the music. But then with 1 week to go, I did a very strict form of the carbohydrate loading diet, known as the Saltin diet. And I don't mean salt as in salt, Saltin, Dr. Saltin. I'm not going to try and explain it now, John, because it would take me the entire length of the time we want to chat. But it was a very strict 7-day diet of a certain period where you eat no carbohydrates at all, and then a certain period when you eat just carbohydrates before the race. And then you cut back your training. And that ritual of doing that diet was telling my head, here we go, we're about to run the Comrades Marathon. And my example that I use so often is, a lot of people don't know, but I actually taught and studied archaeology at Wits. And I did quite a lot of work with Iron Age archaeology. And what is fascinating is that Iron Age peoples from 500 BC, from that long ago, could smelt iron. They could smelt iron, okay, with no electricity, no computers, no, modern technology. They smelted iron. That doesn't mean they melted it, but they got it soft enough that they could heat it up hard enough and soft enough that they could beat it into shape to make a spearhead or a plow or whatever instrument or tool they wanted to make. And we know scientifically that they did the correct things, but they also had ritual involved, and they never changed the ritual. And every time they smelted iron, so what they did was they would make Iron Age peoples would make a furnace out of termite mound earth, because the termites make their mounds fire resistant. So they would make a kiln out of termite mound. Then they would put in that kiln the exact hard woods, the ferociously hard woods that can burn at ferocious heats. And then they would work giant bellows. They would take turns. They would work in relay and pump giant bellows that would put oxygen onto that fire to make it as hot as possible. And then they would smelt iron. But that was part of the ritual. But the other part of the ritual was that they had to drink beer. Now, we know scientifically that has nothing to do with smelting iron. In fact, it's likely to spoil your attempts to smelt iron because you're going to get distracted. They also put certain muties in with the iron ore, which you don't need to put in. You don't need to put in wild garlic or whatever, but they did it. And then lastly, they had to ensure that no women were anywhere present. No women were allowed to be anywhere present or near the process of smelting iron in Iron Age times. Now, we now know that some of those steps are not important. You don't need them to smelt iron, but they never left out one step of the ritual, and they got bingo every single time. So that was the same with me. I did my little ritual because I didn't want to leave out a step that might be important.
How did you handle the pressure of being the man to beat year after year? That must have been quite something.
And yeah, there was a lot of pressure, as each year goes past. But then you also get a kind of invincibility feeling. You just feel, because why? They've chosen you as the person to beat. That means they must really, respect you. And as I said, from my training, I would take the pressure off myself by saying, you may not win, but you will run 5.5 hours. You will run 5.5 hours. Your training's just shown you. So now that's already taken the pressure off. And then I used to constantly remind myself that it's only a race. It's only a race. It's not life and death. If you don't win it, the sun will still come up the next day. And you're not going to let yourself down because you're going to run well. And before the race, the night before, I would write on my hands in indelible ink, "Have fun." I'd write on this one hand, "Have fun," and on the other hand, "Relax." And then just go and do it. I would crack jokes and tell that, and I also knew that the wonderful thing about an ultra marathon is you have a lot of time to correct a mistake, which you don't have if you're a 100-meter sprinter. If you're a 100-meter sprinter and you stumble slightly when the gun fires, that's your race. Not only is it your race over, you're lost. Because you've lost half a stride. That's it. But in Comrades, you can go out too fast, go out too slowly, and you've still got time to correct that as you realize what's going on. And also, Comrades takes a long time to unwind. So I used to really not be fond of the first half of the race, because for sort of 2.5 hours, everybody's running with you. Everybody looks great. You don't know what's going on. But after halfway, you start, if there was a big group of runners following me, after halfway, you start to shed the dead bodies. They're all going out the back, like flotsam and jetsam at the back of a ship. There they go, because they can't take the pace. And then slowly, 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 it whittles down to 2 or 3 of you, and then 2 of you, and then I would quite often get a surprise, and I'd suddenly think, "Oh, you're on your own here, mate." And I suddenly realize, no, you're in front. There's nobody there. They're gone. So, yeah. And so I was quite good at just defusing the pressure. And I was quite good at pushing it onto somebody else as well. If the press interviewed me, they say, who are you worried about? I would immediately pick the person that I was worried about and say how incredibly fit they were, and they're due a win, and it should be their time to win, so that I could shift the pressure onto them.
I love it. Did you ever consider quitting mid-race? And how did you push through the toughest moments, Bruce?
No, it's comrades. I have quit in races. I have dropped out. There's sometimes times when it could be
Hmm.
dangerous to your health, or you're absolutely having a shocker, and it's better to drop out, regroup, and come back again. But comrades just has this aura about it that if with as far as possible, even if everything goes wrong, still try and finish it. And it shows a certain arrogance, if you're one of the front runners and now you're not going to make the top 10, let's say, so you stop. It shows almost a kind of disrespect to the people who 4 hours behind you, who would do anything to make the top 100. They would sell their souls to make the top 100, and you're saying that's not good enough, so I'm going to drop out. So I used to, yeah, be quite. I would know that I'm going to finish, even if I have a bad one.
How has the Comrades Marathon changed since your competitive days?
Wow. So some things remain constant. The distance more or less,
Mm.
the various traditions are still in place, like the green numbers, always remembering to say good morning, Arthur, when you go past Arthur's seat, the wall of honor, the ritual of the start. All those sorts of things have remained constant. What has changed is phenomenally. When I ran my first comrades, black runners and women had only been allowed to run for 2 years. And black runners had to run with their ethnic tag underneath their number because the nationalist government had declared it an international race. So these were not South Africans. These are people from the Bantustans running. So there's a photograph of Vincent Rakabeli. I think he came eighth,
Yeah.
finishing with the tag underneath his number saying Sutu. So
Mm.
they had to have their ethnic tag. So when I ran my first comrades, there were black runners, but not many, and then there were a handful of women. I mean, I don't remember seeing a woman in 1977 at all. I think Letty Van Zyl won it. She would have been quite a long way behind me, and she was first lady home. I don't, I don't, so that's changed. We were allowed to be seconded the whole way by our loved ones and our families from a car. They could drive alongside you and hand you drinks out the window. I mean, you can't do that anymore. It would be bedlam and chaos if they try to do that. The seconding tables themselves are now like truly world class. You can get anything you want there. Of course, I'm not bitter, but there's a slight subject of prize money. There was no prize money when I was winning, nothing, not 1 cent. And the race was televised, but it was filmed and it was shown about 2 weeks later as a kind of packaged version of what had happened. And now I know because I'm on the commentary team. Now it's 13 hours of live coverage, no breaks, solid, the whole race from the winners coming in to the final cutoff gun. So it's and now become a truly international race that I think it's kind of welcomed into the pantheon of the great races of the world. So if you had to pick, the world's great city marathons, it's Boston, London, New York, Berlin, Tokyo, Paris, and there's Comrades right in amongst all of them, and it's the only ultra. The others are all 42-kilometer standard marathons, and Comrades sits there right in amongst all those races, and it's 90 Ks, and the tradition, of course, one of the traditions is, of course, the race changing direction, up and down, up and down. So this year is a down run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. And yeah, I mean, in many ways. And then, of course, the numbers. When I ran my first Comrades, there were 1,500 runners. So there were 1,500 of us. And now there will be 23,000. And that's with people still desperately trying to get into the race. So it could be even bigger.
I've met a lot of sportsmen and women who, during their tenure, and like you said, didn't earn money for your wins, that sort of thing. And you look at some of the cricketers today, and you look at some of the rugby players, for example, a lot of the footballers. I mean, I can go on and on. But do you sometimes feel bitter about that fact, or do you kind of just accept it, Bruce?
Not really, not really, John. To be honest, um, the prize money. So look, and now it's 800 and something thousand times nine. That would be quite useful. And if you break the course record, you get another 500,000. Well, that would have been times five. Um, but you spend the money, and it's gone. And
Yeah.
it's gone, and it's whittled away, and whatever. And I'm sure if you speak to some of the Comrades runners who won in 2000, 2010, their prize money's long gone into the bond. I don't know, all your relatives who
Yeah.
borrow from you. But the one thing that remains constant, you see, is yeah, they all borrow from you. um, if you've won the race, they can never take that away from you. So um, there's a lovely runner who sadly passed away about a year or so ago, Bernard Gomersall, who won the 1965 Comrades, and he's from Leeds in the UK. He said when he won on the day, there was no prize money in 1965. He said that was fantastic. He thought, wow, I've just run Comrades. He had no idea. He said, I had no idea that 40 years later, I would still be known as a Comrades winner. I would still be invited to functions. I would still go to a sports gathering in Britain where people would welcome this and that footballer, and then the MC would say, oh, and Bernard Gomersall, sitting at the table at the back, he won the Comrades Marathon in 1965. He could not believe that it remains with you forever, and they can't take it away from you. The great Wally Hayward had a wonderful saying, not about prize money, but about records. He said, Bruce, you borrow records. You borrow records, and then somebody takes it away from you. He said, but you keep titles. Once you've won, as Wally said, he said, I won in 1930, I won in 1954. So no one else can take that away from me. But they've long ago smashed the record that he ran. They've long ago taken half an hour off the time that Wally ran.
And they certainly can't take away your dignity, like in the words of George Benson, the greatest love of all. What do
No.
you think of today's top runners, Bruce? Anyone you see as a modern day equivalent, perhaps?
Oh, Gerda Steyn. Gerda Steyn is the flavor of the decade at the moment.
Yep.
She can do no wrong. I mean, she's won 6 two oceans. Just to remind you, I've won no two oceans, none. She's won 6 with records. Then she has won 3 Comrades Marathons with records, unbelievable records, and she looks highly likely to win a 4th one in a couple of weeks' time. And then with that, she brings a wonderful charisma, a wonderful joy for running. She just seems to be having so much fun out there. The public absolutely adore her, and she adores them. And I'm getting a bit jealous. She can't. I don't want her pushing in on my territory there, but she's doing it very successfully. She's she's a complete rock star, and I can't. At the moment, it just doesn't look likely that anyone can beat her. Um, and as I said, she's a complete asset to the race. So Gerda Steyn is kind of looking as the big name of Comrades Marathon, maybe of all time, if she wins a couple more.
How do you feel about the commercialization and global reach of ultra running today?
Well, it isn't really, John. It's us. We've got
Yes.
our 2 big races, which are head and shoulders bigger than any other ultra in the world, and that's Comrades and Two Oceans. Those 2 are very special. The rest of the world, ultra, it's for the lunatic fringe. You know, the great Amby Burfoot, who won Boston Marathon in 1968, came out to run Comrades because he wanted to get a Comrades medal. He just said, in America, where I come from, the ultra gets 100 people, and that we all consider them a bit, to use his American expression, crazy. They're all crazy. He said, but I come to Comrades, there's 20,000 people running 90Ks, and the whole country's come to a standstill to watch it. So there isn't really a commercialization of ultras. There is in South Africa with those big two, and then also the kind of satellite races that support them, like the Omdidam and the, I'm trying to think now, and the Loskop and races like that. But those two are massive, and they're uniquely ours. There's nothing else in the world. If you said to me, Bruce, you can win one other race in the world, ultra, I'd say, okay, the Western States 100 miler. That would be nice to win that, but I have no intention of running 100 miles, and my legs have no intention of allowing me to. So yeah, that's quite a well-known race, and our own Ryan Sands has won it. Um, it's quite well known. It is covered, but it's a small field of, I don't know, fewer than 500.
Wow, amazing. Some of the, looking at your personal path as well. How would you say that Comrades has shaped you as a person beyond being an athlete?
Without it, Comrades gives you wonderful gifts. Discipline, reward for hard work. It teaches you all those things. Accepting defeat sometimes, uh, accepting with dignity and modesty, accepting victory. But probably the biggest lesson that Comrades has given me is that I now know that if the cause is worthwhile, if the purpose is something honorable, nothing can stop me. I will do it if I want to. Because at Comrades, when you get to 70 Ks, you want to stop. And you can be a runner surrounded by dozens of other runners, but you are totally alone. And you have to get yourself to the finish. No one else is going to do it. And we do. There's I don't know, 88% success rate on race day. And half the ones that don't make it will be back the following year anyway to make sure they do make it. So I think that's probably the greatest thing. And then as a race, it taught us, as a nation, how we can do so well together. All the different, dare I use the word color, black, white, whatever you are, what religion you are, whatever. We're all striving for that common goal of beating that dreadful final cutoff gun, and we do it. Everybody gets, you all get through. Just about everybody makes it. I know there's very tragic scenes of the final cutoff, but it's extraordinary what you can see. This common desire to beat the common enemy, and the common enemy is the stopwatch and the clock, and that's ticking relentlessly towards 12 o'clock, towards 12 hours. So we're all trying to beat that.
Do you think there's anything someone has maybe misunderstood, Bruce, about your journey?
No, I would doubt it. My mother never quite forgave me for not winning 10. She's
Okay.
sadly no longer with us, but I would phone her, that weekly phone call that you make to your mother. And it's like that. I hate to say it because it sounds so dreadful, but it's almost like a chore that you've got to do. Oh, I've got to phone my mum. And because I knew what would be coming. She'd do, how's the weather, mum? Oh, because she had a beautiful house in Clarence in the Free State. What's the weather like? And I'd catch the gossip. And then somewhere in the conversation, she would say to me, do you think if you'd tried harder in 1980, you might have won? Because she wanted me to win 10. And she was so upset that I only won 9. And I said to her, Mom, I used to say to her, Mom, 9's not bad. It's going to be quite hard for someone else to win 9. And she would say, yes, but you gave up in 1980. No, whatever. She would lecture me. You could have won 10. I say, oh, Mom, 9's not bad. And then I got a phone call from Nas around about that time, and he
Yes.
said, Bruce, relax. He said, I've got 9 curry cups. He said, and Nas, of course, famously played for the old Northern Transvaal, the Blue Bulls, and he won 9 curry cups with them. And the 10th, which they should have won, was against a hopeless outfit whose old name was the Banana Boys, who only became the Sharks later on. And the Banana
That's
Boys
right.
from Natal had never won the Curry Cup, and they got pulverized by Northern Transvaal every time they played them. They got smashed, and then they got to the final, and the final was at Loftus, Nas said we ran onto the field. He said, my teammates, and said, we knew we were going to win. We knew we were going to win. That was going to be my 10th Curry Cup. And we lost. so, and then I'm not putting myself in the same league, but you mentioned Gary Player, 9 majors. I bet Gary Player's mom didn't say to him, why didn't you get 10, Gary? Why didn't you get 10 majors? And then,
Exactly.
and then the other one that he mentioned, Martina Navratilova. She won 9 singles titles at Wimbledon. Where was the 10th?
Yeah.
And then the ultimate, I mean, the ultimate of all time, I think the greatest cricketer of all time, Don Bradman. If Don Bradman had scored 4 runs in his last innings, he would have had a lifetime average of 100, but he got a duck. His last innings was a duck, and so he got 99.9 lifetime average. So 9's not a bad number. I'm happy with that.
Was your mum at every Comrades? Was she there to support you?
Yes, she was. Yeah, in some form or other. But she was brilliant at organizing my seconding team. She used to organize my seconding team.
Yeah.
She wasn't great at tactics, So I used to give her a heart attack because I always came from behind. I was always quite a long way back, and then I would run very far the second half very strongly. So I would give her a heart attack because, in her opinion, I'd be too far back. But I knew what I was doing. I said, no, I'm at the right place.
Were your mum and dad good runners? I mean, where does it all come from? Your amazing
My
pickup.
dad, no, I mean he played hockey. No, my mom ran for Border. She was an
Hmm.
East London lady. She ran for Border, but in those days, women were not allowed to
Was
run
she at,
further
was
than
she at
400
Clarendon?
meters.
Was she at Clarendon? At
She was
Clarendon.
at Clarendon, yeah. She was at
So was my
Clarendon
mum.
Girls. Then she taught at,
Mm.
yeah, then she taught at Clarendon, and then I was one day the guest speaker at Clarendon. I was their
Oh,
prize giving
nice.
end of the year spoke there. Yeah, she went to Rhodes.
Okay, lovely. Um, was there ever a life or career path, Bruce, that you considered besides running ever?
Yeah,
I mean, I
I
know
could
you
have.
did
I
archaeology.
could have, and I do. Yeah, I miss it. I could have been an academic at university in the archaeology department. I had worked my
Yes.
way up to the bottom rungs of the ladder. I was already, I was a research officer, then a research assistant, then I was a junior lecturer, that kind of level, and teaching or whatever. And then the running just started to interfere more and more. I remember my professor David Lewis Williams, who's is the world's leading expert on rock art, particularly Bushman sign rock art in South Africa. He is a genius. But when I finally made the
Mm.
decision that I must pursue this running, he looked at me with such scorn and said, "Go, Fordyce. Fame and money appear to be your spurs in life," which I thought was great. Because there was no money. There was a certain amount of fame, but there was no money.
But
But
how did life
but you
change
see, what
after?
happened was that then
Yeah.
I still dabble in it. You see, I still return. So I helped to. I was the chair of the committee that built the Origin Center at Wits University, which is the origins of. It's our earliest hominids and the origins of art, culture, technology. So when people say nothing came out of Africa, everything came out of Africa. Everything,
Mm.
including us as a species. We came out of Africa. Um, so I was involved with that quite with the building of the construction and the funding of the Origin Center. And I do the odd, yeah, I get the odd thing. And then the probably my proudest moment at Wits University, it was not winning Comrades in their colors, was actually being given an honorary doctorate um, by the university. So that, when you get the honorary doctorate, that's quite a pat on the back from your alma mater saying, we appreciate that you were here at this university. And it's quite an interesting one because you see all our politicians, they get a so-called doctorate at some dodgy, I don't know, university somewhere, and they insist on calling themselves professor or doctor, whatever. I have been very, very sharply informed by Wits University that on campus, I am Dr. Fordyce. I can call myself Dr. Fordyce on Wits campus because that's where I got the honor. I cannot call myself Dr. Fordyce anywhere else because I don't have a PhD. And it's arrogant to call yourself doctor. However, this is slightly tongue in cheek. They said to me, Bruce, you have our full permission to call yourself Dr. Fordyce if you are trying to get a table in a full restaurant or an upgrade on a plane flight.
I'm sure
Which I
Rassie
thought
could
was
actually
quite
take a
good.
feather. I'm sure Rassie could take a feather out
Yeah,
of
well,
your
Rusty,
cap as well,
Rusty,
because he's a doctor. I mean, would that allow him to go into the field
yeah,
then?
he's an honorary
But it
doctor.
wouldn't, because no
He's an
MBBCH or
honorary
MBCHB.
doctor. Yeah, yeah. He's had got an honorary doctorate. Yeah.
Unbelievable. You're very modest about that. You don't even talk about the fact that you are Dr. Bruce Fordyce. I must admit,
Well,
I must commend
because
you
I
on.
was an academic of a certain fashion, I know that you get scorned if you call yourself doctor and you don't have a PhD.
Yeah,
And I don't have a
that's right.
PhD, so that yeah.
Yeah. How did life change for you after the peak of your career? What was the transition like, really? And moreover, I mean, what sort of
Well, I
legacy
had
do
a
you hope
few
to
difficult years where I
leave?
struggled. I struggled quite a
Mm,
lot with what to do, because at one stage I wanted to stop running and get a proper job, but I was still winning. And my mother and my father, my mother, I've known, she was an English teacher, so her English is superb, was superb, and she used to lecture. She things that drove her mad. There is no such thing as different to. It is different from. Please get that right.
yep.
She would, and when somebody asks, "How are you?" Don't say good, because the thought then is, oh, were you bad before? The answer is, I am well, thank you. No, she was a stickler for
Yes.
the correct
Mm,
English. Um, and you cannot think to yourself. That is tautology. You can only think.
yeah.
You can't think to yourself, you're thinking. You see, so
Yeah.
she was quite a stickler for that. But she did say to me when we were talking about what I should do, and I said to her, Mum, it's time I got a job. My friends are all earning salaries and I'm kind of hoping for sponsors and stuff like that. She said, no, you must continue to run. She said, because you are uncommonly good at running long distances very quickly. I love the way she said it. You are uncommonly good.
Good.
But then when it was time to get something to do, then I started giving motivational talks with a wonderful organization called the MAST organization with a wonderful guy called Mike McFarlane, who's also no longer with us, who taught me to speak, he took my I could give a lecture, so he took that, but he honed it down so I could give a talk. I was involved with the Sports Trust for quite a while, funding sports development.
Yep.
And then my real passion now, and the thing that I'm so excited about, is parkrun. 5K is free on a Saturday morning. Please don't forget your barcode. There's my barcode. Don't forget your barcode. And come along and you can walk. And no one will laugh at you. You can be out of shape. You can be unathletic looking. And we will still give you your time. You will be safe, ladies. We're happy to report that in Parkrun in South Africa, more of our participants are women than there are men. And we have grown from 2012, 26 people came to the first Parkrun. We are now 1.6 million. 1.6 million registered parkrunners at 225 different venues around the country, everywhere from a Zulu parkrun in the Drakensberg to a parkrun on the edge of the Kruger Park to a parkrun where you turn in on the beach and you turn and you look at Table Mountain to township parkruns to parkruns started in Namibia and in Eswatini, and we hope soon Zimbabwe, Botswana, and it keeps us busy all day long, every day. But I never have ever thought of it as a job. It is most of the time the most absolutely uh, glorious thing to do with such a sense of accomplishment that you can change people's lives. John, we were talking about prize money.
Yeah.
Nothing can pay for. When you get a stranger thanking you for parkrun.
Yes.
Thank you. It is unbelievable. And my best example is one of our parkrun founders, ambassadors, we call them, down in East London, Bob Norris. So Bob Norris started the first parkrun in East London at Nahoon Point on the beach. And he was there on a Saturday morning, because it's every Saturday morning. He was putting up some cones and some direction arrows and that for the park run in the blazing heat. He said it was absolute blazing heat. And his best mate had had a birthday the night before. So Bob said he was, in addition to the blazing heat, he was suffering from a Force 10 hangover. He was so broken. And he was sitting there and he said, "What am I doing?" He said, "What am I doing? I'm putting up this, I'm standing in the heat. I should be in bed. I'm putting up the cones for a park. I'm not even getting paid." So he said he wrote his resignation letter in his head to me and to Jill, my wife. He said he prepared his resignation letter. He was going to say, "Look, it's been fun, but I just don't have the time anymore, and I need to focus on family." Or he wrote this whole thing. He said that afternoon, before he'd sent the email, he went to the shops, and he said this old woman came up to him and hugged him and said, "Bob, thank you for parkrun in East London. You have changed my life." He said he just tore up his resignation letter in his mind. He just tore it up. You can't pay for that, when somebody hugs you and says thank you. And we get it all the time. Unbelievable. And yeah, parkrun, we've got huge ambitions that it will get bigger and bigger and bigger. Our next direction is more into the poorer areas, rural areas, townships, where maybe the park is a very broad definition of what a park is, but it's an open piece of land and you can run 4 laps and do 5Ks. That's what we're after. And if it makes a difference to the community there, that is absolutely fantastic. But at the moment, it is just too glorious for words. I mean, this Saturday, there's a brand new park run starting in Storms River. Can you think of a more beautiful place? And I will be there running 5Ks slowly, not even at the pace that I can't even run 5Ks at the pace that I could run Comrades, but it doesn't matter. We're still there.
How do you feel anatomically? I know it takes its toll, but I mean, have you? Are you? Do you
Yeah,
feel
I'm quite
feel up
surprised.
to it?
I've had a knee replacement.
Yes, I
I've
know.
had a knee
Yeah,
replacement. I have a metal
make a big
knee,
difference.
which is such fun. When you're at the airport, it's great fun because when you go through security, you don't have to take off your watch and your glasses and all things because you know it's going to go ping because you've got metal in your knee. It goes ping every time. I love chatting to the security people there because they say, "We know you, Medallas. If it's not your knee, it's your hip. It goes ping." I said, "All of us."
Oh, I love it. I love it. If
Yeah,
you could run just
yeah.
one more comrade,
By the way, John, I'm still running.
yeah,
I'm running half marathons and I'm running park runs in 30 minutes. I can do 5Ks in 30 minutes. So I'm
stunning,
still I'm
stunning.
still
That's
there.
beautiful.
But obviously
Yeah,
when I was winning Comrades, I was doing 5Ks in 25 minutes and then doing 18 of them back to back. But
wow, incredible. Well, it's good to hear that you're still uh, very mobile and passionate about parkrun. It's a
yeah,
lovely
yeah, no, I'm
way
not
to
going to stop. No, if I stop, I'll rust.
If you could run just one more comrades, Brucey, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
No, no. Well, I mean, if I could run one more, you mean in my current state? Let's say. Well, for one thing, I know I would need most of the day to finish, and I would spend more time enjoying the whole experience, more time talking to other runners, more time making sure I do all the rituals and all the things that are so fantastic. Go and touch my shield on the wall of honor because people who've run comrades, John, can put their names up on a shield. I know exactly where mine is, even though there's thousands of shields. I had to go and put my hand on my shield. Definitely spend some time at Arthur's seat and say good morning, Arthur, and put a flower there for him. Listen to the chariots of fire. Listen to Max Trimborn's cockerel crow, and enjoy the whole day. Maybe an uprun, little small glass of champagne at the top of Polly Shorts, just for old time's sake, and to celebrate that you got up there. But actually, I'm there at Comrades every year, John, and if you're a past winner, I would lie if I didn't admit that it is a massive ego trip. If you're one of the past winners of the race, to the ordinary runners, and I'm not using the word ordinary because there's nothing, I don't like using that word. There's nothing ordinary about people who run Comrades. But to the slower runners, you are a living deity. You've won the thing. They look at you like, how did he do that? I can see some of the young runners look me up and down, and they're trying to see what is magical about me. They're looking at me like this. How did he do that? And I would love to tell them the first step is choose your parents correctly. Once you've done that, you're on your way. It's in the genetics.
Finally, some advice some advice for Comrades runners this year.
For Comrades runners this year, the standard advice I give every year: there is only one way to run that race. You start like a coward, and you finish like a hero. So you start slowly, cautiously. It is ridiculously far. There are some insane hills, and everyone says, yeah, but we're doing the down run. For the first 55 Ks of the down run, you go up. You just go up. Novices even say, are you sure we're doing a down run? I've done nothing but climb big hills the whole morning. So you start like a coward and you finish like a hero. If you hold yourself back in the first half, you contain all that energy and all that enthusiasm, and then you release it slowly, like a slow burning fuse, in the second half of the race. Then you have a magical day. There is nothing quite like passing people at the end to keep you motivated. It's not about beating them. It's that you've timed it perfectly when you're going past people, as opposed to having people coming past you because you've blown up and you're shattered, and then you started too fast.
In conclusion, Bruce, is there anything you might like to add that we might have missed in our chat?
No, just to all people who, two things. One is, if you really want to start exercising again, you want to make great friends, you want to be part of a community, please come to a park run. You can walk. I walked park run 5 weeks after my knee operation, and I felt no shame. I walked at the back. You will never be last because we have a person called a tail walker who goes at the back. I walked with the tail walker and chatted to her the whole way around. And then a few weeks later, I was running again. But it's not about, you will have such fun. You will have such fun, and it gives you such a camaraderie, and the best day of the week is Saturday morning. Anyway, so that's, and then if you're thinking about Comrades, just do it. Just go and do it. Just go for it. And if you want some wonderful advice, you can buy my book, which is called Winged Messenger. Why is it called Winged Messenger? Because that logo there is Hermes, the winged messenger of the Greek gods. And that is the Comrades Marathon logo. And Hermes had many powers, but one of his interesting ones is that he could travel across time. He could go back and forth from time. And the reason he's so appropriate is the person you are before you run Comrades is not the same person you'll be after you run Comrades. You change forever. So just go and run Comrades and prove to yourself. Watch this year's Comrades Marathon on TV. It will be spectacular, as they always are. And just promise yourself, just start going. I wrote this book, Winged Messenger, on what I did to run my first Comrades. And my first Comrades, I went from 10 minutes around the Wits rugby fields to, in 1 year later, running Comrades. And it wasn't insane. I didn't think I could win it. I was nowhere near winning it. My first one, it was only after a few years that I realized I could maybe win this race. Just go and do it. And you will have an amazing, amazing adventure.
That was the incomparable Bruce Fordyce, living proof that greatness isn't just about physical endurance, but mental strength, consistency, and heart. And if you enjoyed this conversation with Bruce and I, make sure to follow the podcast Beyond the Glory, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration. You can find more from Bruce in the links that we will provide on my Facebook platform, where I do follow Bruce religiously. And as always, thank you for listening to Beyond the Glory. Until next time, keep showing up. Brucey, to you and Jill, may you continue to go from strength to strength. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
And just please say thank you very much to the copywriter for those kind words.
Me. Thank you very much indeed. I'll see you at Comrades Marathon at the finish line, Bruce. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Glory. We appreciate every listen, like, and share. It means the world. Be sure to follow us on social media and keep the conversation going. And if you haven't already, check out our band link at https://band.link/Beyond Glory, full stop. And that's where you'll find all our latest episodes, platforms, and more. Stay locked in. More inspiring stories and powerful moments are coming your way. Until next time, keep pushing beyond the glory.